It is my pleasure to introduce Chris Ribeiro, who will serve as our presenter. Chris is an assistant professor of professional practice and marketing here at Rutgers Business School and a marketing, analytics, and product leader with more than 15 years of experience using AI, data, and technology to drive growth. Prior to working at Rutgers, Chris led global teams at VF Corporation and PVH Corp, delivering meaningful revenue and profit gains at both companies. He also runs Starlight Analytics, a consultancy that helps executives use AI, data, and modern marketing technology to deliver clear return on investment with practical roadmaps and change management. At Rutgers, Chris teaches graduate and MBA courses in AI for marketing, marketing technology, and introduction to marketing, with a focus on where AI truly creates value and how to make its impact visible in a P&L statement. Chris, I'll hand things over to you. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Margaret. I'm really excited to be with this group today. There's no shortage of AI content that's being published. There's no shortage of AI buzzwords and talking heads on the subject. So there's lots of ways that you can dissect this, right? Where a lot of orgs are starting today is with efficiency, right? And that's completely normal. How can we do things faster, cheaper? The promise today is that we want to talk more about how the bigger opportunity is in new offerings, new services, net new business models, right? So I'm going to use a simple lens throughout the session. Where can I, as a business leader, as a practitioner, use AI to remove friction for customers, for the business? How can I use it to create new outcomes? And really create entirely new ways to make money, right? To drive revenue. And the goal here is not just inspiration. So I'm going to give you a repeatable method you can take back to your teams tomorrow. In the chat, we won't talk through each item, but I'm really curious to hear, are the teams here using AI just for productivity, to move things faster, cheaper, or is anybody using AI right now to explore new products, new revenue streams? It helps me get a sense of where things are. If you feel comfortable sharing that in the chat, I'd love to hear more about it. But a lot have started with pilots on efficiency, and what I'm hearing is that a lot are now getting excited about the next move, but not sure exactly where to start, how to get people aligned to them, how to harness their data. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So here is the trap, right? A lot of people start with this idea of efficiency, right? AI used for cost savings, for speed. It creates a temporary advantage, right? Because people can copy faster and cheaper, right? The tools that you're using are broadly available. You see this in content creation. You see this in personalized marketing. The reality is that your competitors can buy the same stuff, right? They can acquire the same sort of talent that knows how to follow those recipes. But when you start to think about AI and how it changes the customer experience, that ceiling, it starts to move, right? Customers stop comparing you just to your category and they start comparing you to the best experience they've had anywhere. So efficiency is fine, but in and of itself, it's not a strategy. Innovation is. So I see this inside some really big companies. Two business units, they buy the same AI tools, the same vendor, the same budget, same timelines. One team uses it to automate reporting, to write emails faster. It's good productivity, but nothing customers notice. The other team uses it to redesign a customer decision point, like helping customers pick the right product in 30 seconds with more confidence. And then suddenly, conversion, retention start to move. So same stack, completely different strategic outcome, right? And that's the trap. Efficiency benefits are real, but they plateau really fast. Innovation compounds because customers can feel it. And you got to reflect on what's really changed on the customer side, right? AI rewires customer expectations in three words: instant, personal, and proactive. Instant isn't just speed, it's certainty. Customers want answers now, they want them not later. Personal isn't segmentation, it's this fits me. And proactive is the big one. Customers increasingly expect you to anticipate their needs, not wait for a complaint. And once customers experience that level of service in one place, they start to to expect it everywhere. And you probably know this yourself, right? I think about how Netflix and Spotify trained us as consumers. So nobody calls what they do AI in their head, or very few people call what they do AI in their head. They just feel that experience, right? It's instant. You open the app and there's something good right away. It's personal. The home screen feels like it was made for you, not the average user, which there's no such thing as the average user. And it's proactive. It's not waiting for you to ask. It services what you'll likely want next. And the important part is once people experience that in entertainment, they subconsciously expect it in banking, in healthcare, in retail, in B2B software, in insurance. The experience bar moves across those categories. And that leads to the question that senior leaders and leaders of any type should really obsess over, right? It's how can we help customers make progress in ways we couldn't before not to use AI. Not where can we automate, right? The better question is what new value can we create that customers will choose, that they will actually pay for, right? And that they'll stick with. Because if you keep that question on the wall, you'll avoid a lot of the AI buzz and the theater around this, right? It forces you to connect AI to real customer progress and real willingness to pay. So I'm going to give you 4 business model moves. Okay, these are patterns. Once you see them, you'll start noticing them everywhere. Okay, the first one's called the outcome economy. So think about this as customers paying for results, not the product. This is when customers stop buying the thing and they start buying the outcome that the thing produces. AI makes this possible because it improves prediction, measurement, and consistency, which is what you need to sell those outcomes. The second is the platform ecosystem. You become the place that others plug into. This is when you stop being only a product and become infrastructure, the operating layer that others build on top of, right? AI strengthens platforms because data and workflows, they compound over time. The system gets smarter as usage grows. The third idea is that of the media network. This is you monetizing attention and intent, not just transactions. So this is when you realize you sit inside discovery and consideration. You see the intent. AI makes the data refinery real, targeting plus measurement, especially when you can connect exposure to real outcomes. And the last one is the idea of the personalization economy. Right? You're charging for a one-to-one experience, pricing, or risk model. This is when AI enables individualization at scale, not segments, but truly tailored experiences or pricing. Personalization becomes monetizable when it changes outcomes, things like conversion, retention, risk, or wallet share. So when you bring AI to leadership, or if you are leadership, right, the worst framing you could possibly have is we want to use AI. The better framing is which business model are we pursuing, right? Because each of these archetype answers a different type of questions. If you're focused on outcomes, the question is how do we tie price to value? If it's platform, you're asking how do we become the operating layer of what others in the same situation need. If it's media, you're thinking about monetizing the intent that you already own, right? You have a data asset. We'll talk more about each one of these. And then personalization is how do we win through individual level relevance or pricing. Once you name the archetype, the rest of the conversation is a whole lot clearer. Last thing I'll say is these 4 archetypes share one thing: they all compound. So efficiency improvements are linear. You save X hours, X dollars. It's good, but it flattens, right? These archetypes compound because the product gets smarter, the ecosystem deepens, or the customer relationship becomes stickier over time, right? So the goal is not a one-time lift. It's building a system that improves as it's used. So let's make these tangible with a set of let's make these tangible with a set of examples. Let's start with John Deere. Okay, I think most people know of John Deere for their iconic green equipment, right? Tractors, reliability, the promise that their machines help farmers get the job done. And that's what John Deere is associated with: rugged equipment and deep trust in agriculture. But modern farming has a very brutal reality. Margins are tight, inputs are expensive, so the strategic questions becomes where is the biggest pain point in the operating model for customers, right? In this case, farmers, where outcomes really matter. So let me set up a customer pain point in really plain English. A lot of farmers, spraying with pesticides, things like that, is a major expense and it's a major risk, right? Herbicide is expensive. Weed pressure isn't uniform across the field. If you're spraying this in a blanket fashion, it wastes product. Overuse creates resistance pressures on the crops, and the customer doesn't have time to guess wrong during a season when they need to yield, right? And what John Deere did was they recognized that farmers would actually pay for a specific type of outcome, right? That solves those pain points, something that they could deliver to meet the needs of those customers, even though John Deere doesn't have a competency historically in AI, right? They didn't ask their farmers to become data scientists. They figured out a way to embed intelligence into their equipment so that cameras and AI powered models can identify weeds in real time and spray only where it's needed. So the customer doesn't buy AI, the customer buys fewer inputs wasted. They buy more consistent outcomes. They buy more confidence that the system is doing the right thing at field speed. So they've created a system here that they can attach to their existing products that will make their customers' lives easier, right? And they reported that this has helped some of their customers save up to 60% in terms of dollars, and has reduced the amount of waste in terms of herbicide by up to 50%. So the big takeaway here is that they thought through who are we, who are our customers, what is our major pain point that they're feeling, and how can we develop AI solutions that we can sell back to them for a premium that will solve those needs and make sense given our brand and our reality, right? Because when AI changes customer unit economics, meaning it changes cost per acre for them, time per acre, yield outcomes, you often unlock the ability to change pricing models, service layers, and long-term loyalty. Let's look at a similar logic in construction and mining. So you may have seen these. You may have responsibility for these sorts of things. Komatsu is very well known for heavy equipment in construction and mining. They sell excavators, haul trucks, bulldozers, right? The machines that you see behind massive projects. So the brand promises things like productivity, reliability, getting complex work done in really harsh conditions. Now, the customer pain point they're responding to is that progress visibility can be slow. You don't know on a job site that you're behind until it's too late, right? Surveying and measurement takes time, introducing risk. The site condition where you are, where you do construction, can change constantly. And your schedule can slip, and that can turn into budget overruns that can really disrupt the whole project that you're working on. So they understood their customers' pain points deeper than I just need a machine that can move heavy stuff, right? Or that can dig earth. And what they did was realize, hey, that a single AI feature wasn't enough. We should make a connected system. We should take a platform approach. So their move was to build a connected job site system, not a single AI feature. Think about it as smart construction, positioned as a suite of digital solutions that connect planning, progress tracking, reporting, so they can use tools like drone mapping to capture site reality faster than traditional walking surveys, feeding into job site planning and progress visibility. Then the AI helps reduce manual work in turning messy capture into usable maps. So, for example, if you're removing obstacles from drone surveys, you get a cleaner terrain model with less effort, right? And that's where you're hearing things come up unconventionally as a service, right? So Komatsu is now selling earth moving as a service. It becomes more plausible because you can measure and influence progress reliably. You can start moving toward outcome-based models, pricing around things like throughput, schedule adherence, uptime, completed work. Very different from just selling heavy equipment, right? They thought about how to take those pain points and use them towards something. In this case, they built the platform, right? So we covered outcomes, we covered the platform. Let's talk a little bit more about media networks. So retail is a great place to talk about data and customer data. For years, people said data is the new oil. I still believe that to be true. The issue was a lot of companies had it, but they struggled to extract it, to refine it into some real business value, or they only did so on the surface, right? And Walmart sits on a ton of data. They have first-party customer data. They have marketplace data that runs their websites or their stores, and that data is a tremendous asset. And that became the foundation for Walmart Connect, which is their retail media network. And you're seeing lots of brands or lots of retailers come out with their retail media networks now, right? Because it's a media network play. You can monetize the ecosystem through sponsored placements, right? You can help people run ads by leveraging that data. Walmart does this, Amazon does this, Macy's does this. You're seeing this all over the place, right? The AI unlock is that brands don't just buy impressions, they can actually buy outcomes that are tied to real shopping behavior, right? That closed loop connection is the refinery. And the strategic point for leaders is it's important. Media networks are not just extra marketing. They're a new revenue line built on journeys that you already own. So if you're Walmart, this is a just taking more advantage of what you already have to maximize the value of what you have, right? This is a big part of their business now. It's like we can only open so many stores. We can only grow the online presence so big after we switch it to a marketplace. What are we going to do now? Well, let's do something with our data. So really smart. Let's talk about the personalization economy. And I want to talk about insurance. I think we had a few folks here from the insurance industry. And insurance is built on prediction, right? But historically, a lot of prediction was based on proxies and more coarse segmentation, right? But the customer pain points are similar. Let's think about car insurance. My pain points as a car insurance buyer. I'm a safe driver. Why am I paying this? Why am I paying more? Right? My rate changed. I don't understand why. Or this whole process feels really opaque and unfair. Now, from the business side, these models can be slow to adapt to that real world behavior. You're seeing some companies start to take advantage of this and offer personalized models, right? AI shifts the possibility from leveraging just proxies towards looking at real world behavior, right? But it comes with major responsibility around trust, around privacy, and around fairness. So let's talk about a company called Root. And I don't work with Root or work for Root, but I thought their use case was really interesting. Root's bet was simple, right? Let's price primarily based on driving behavior, right? That's personalization at a business model level, not better emails, not more segmentation. It's a different base. It's a different basis of value exchange, right? Customers experience it as fairness and control. My behavior matters, right? And the business experiences it as a differentiated acquisition and sharper risk selection. So here's the punchline and the warning. Driving behavior becomes a primary signal. The product becomes measurement plus feedback plus pricing, right? But insurance is also a really tricky place to play if you don't do this right, because you're operating inside a world that requires trust. There's regulation, right? There's privacy and privacy law. There's fairness. So if customers feel surveilled or if outcomes feel biased, that trust collapses really fast. I I subscribe to an insurance for my dog who's sleeping on the floor right now, who may decide to make an introduction randomly while we talk today to an insurance company called Lemonade. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with Lemonade, if they use Lemonade, but they got into some hot water not too long ago about using AI for their claims experiences. I remember when I first got Lemonade, when I first subscribed to Lemonade, and I would file a claim for my dog, or she went to the vet, she had this, that, it would have me record a video saying what happened. Now, they were using that video to try and predict whether or not the claim was legitimate, whether or not I was potentially going to scam them. Now, they got into hot water. They were using biometric data without consent, and there's people that are claiming that the model that they built was biased and unfair. So you got to be careful with this stuff. You have to be careful when you think about using your customer data. You have to be careful about the customer experience. Of course, you have to follow the law. All those things matter, but it doesn't mean it's still not worth exploring, right? The lesson here I'm trying to say is don't innovate in insurance. I think you can and you should. The lesson is designed for trust, right? Opt-in clarity. Know what people are getting into. Explainability. Testing your models. Testing the work that you produce. For any risk of bias, right? Having governance, and don't collect signals that you can't defend. Okay, so now that we've seen what these four archetypes look like, right? This is a big foundation of what we're going to talk about. How do we apply it inside of our own companies? So here's the leadership reality. You can't bet the company on shiny objects. Okay, you need to have a portfolio. This is a general 70-20-10 recommendation. The exact ratios may differ based on the business that you're in, your level of comfort, how forward looking or how conservative you have to be. But think about maintaining 70% of your efforts on using AI for core optimization. Right? And that's what a lot of people have been doing. Keep today's business healthy. Let's make it more efficient. 20% think about is using for upgrade experiences, right? Strengthening that core, making what you do good, better, faster, more seamless. And then 10% is where you're letting new business models live. You're experimenting, you're trying things out. You may be successful, you may not be, right? And I've seen this pattern over and over. The team has a real innovation idea, but there's no protected budget, right? There's no decision cadence on how to roll something out. There's a lot of pressure on IT to get stuff done, and they just don't have the tools, the bandwidth to make this stuff work. Maybe you had a bad quarter, maybe you got busy, and that 10% that you put aside quietly becomes, we'll get back to that later. We'll put that on the back burner. And then months later, nothing shipped. You haven't done any work, and somebody else picked up on that opportunity. So my advice is try and protect that 10% explicitly with leadership, right? Have a small test budget and some decision cadence. How do we make choices here? If you don't calendar decisioning, if you don't have a process, innovation becomes like someday work, and it could potentially die. Now, the framework that I suggest that you think about as you start to think about this way of using AI is to stop starting with the tech, right? Start with the job that you want to be done with, not the tech. And I didn't come up with job to be done. Job to be done has existed for a long time. We're just applying it in a new way. A job is progress someone's trying to make, right? It's usually attached to some emotion, some uncertainty. As leaders, you're listening for certain words like it's confusing, it's risky, it's overwhelming, I'm not sure. That's where AI enabled guidance can become valuable for you. The customers, and I want to talk quickly about an example. I spent years in the fashion business. So let's talk about a real example from apparel. The customer situation, they're going to go buy a suit, right? So their situation isn't I need to buy a suit. Maybe it's maybe the job is when I have an important event coming up, I want to feel confident, I look appropriate and sharp, so I can show up without second guessing myself, right? And notice the emotion that's embedded in that job, the uncertainty, the risk. I don't want to get this wrong. So now instead of asking how do we use AI, we ask where is the uncertainty? In this case, I'm talking about maybe that's in the fit, maybe that's in coordination, maybe that's in whether it's appropriate or not for the event you're going into. That's where the AI becomes a lever. So you can build an experience that reduces uncertainty. So for example, maybe you're recommending the right fit based on your body and past purchases. Maybe you're suggesting a complete outfit for the occasion. Maybe you're explaining why it's the right choice in language that's easy to understand. Maybe you're proactively flagging a return risk. The point is you didn't start with let's add AI. You started with the job. You started with the pain points. And the job told you exactly where AI creates value. So where else can you hunt, right? Here's the practical starting point. Map your customer's journey, right? Look for those moments where there's high anxiety, high stakes, high choice, high waiting, or high repetition. And then I want you to write a job sentence. When I blank, I want to blank so I can blank. All right. And that is when I'm in a certain situation, I want to, what's the job so I can outcome. So let's do another quick example of that. Go back to maybe back to apparel and think about the customer journey and look at the return process. So this moment is loaded. Did I miss the return window? Right? Will I get my money back? Or, oh, I spent a lot, right? I need to get this resolved. I spent a bunch of money on a really nice suit. It's a long wait. How long until I'm going to get refunded for this? Or I need to go to a store. I need to talk to somebody, and the return process is cumbersome because I don't feel like waiting in line. Or maybe it's high repetition, right? And customers keep checking their status or contacting customer service. So the job sentence here would be something like, when I need to return something, I want a fast, clear path and real-time status so I can feel confident I'll get refunded without all the hassle. And that one sentence becomes an innovation backlog item. What could we build with AI enabled guidance that removes uncertainty and effort in that moment? This is my favorite filter. Okay, there's a sweet spot here. You want ideas that overlap in these three circles. Okay, so you have one circle on customer friction. What's the pain? What's the urgency? Then you have your core competency. What do you do well? What is the thing that you're known for or you want to be known for? And then there's this idea of exhaust data. And data is really important here. What signals do you have, uniquely have, or that you can reasonably access? If an idea can hit on all three of these things, right, it's usually not just a feature, it's a wedge into a new business. Can you use these three things? This also helps prioritization, right? If you only have friction and competency, but no data to signal, it's kind of hard to scale your idea. But if you have data and you have competency, but no urgency, it becomes more nice to have. So let's talk through a hypothetical example here. Let's assume we're working with a chain of gyms, okay? And they're trying to figure out how they can unlock their underutilized data, right? So maybe they have point of sales data, they have membership signups and cancellations, they have information on who comes, CRM data, right? Who visits, how often do they book classes, how often do they cancel, are they using promotions, they have customer feedback. Um, the reality is most companies are sitting on data and they're underusing them to some degree, right? And the strategic move is not dashboards, it's turning that into services, retention engines, offer engines, automated decisioning, right? And then finding ways to monetize that, right? So here's where we can frame both sides of that. The owner struggles with churn. People are joining the gym and then wanting to cancel their membership because they're not coming or not coming enough or it's too expensive. They're following up with customers endlessly. Customers may be struggling with rigidity and the hassle of having to cancel or figuring out how to cancel, feeling trapped, right? So you start to think through where these things converge, and the leap is trying to think through how to build a new operating system, right? You have this operational know-how, but how do you build it into an operating system? It turns some of that specialized knowledge into consistent decisions that you can actually scale out. And once they're consistent, you can productize them. You can sell them as software, as service, or as a platform, right? And that's how you start to think through this concept of taking the 3 points, right? Taking the friction, taking the exhaust data, taking your competencies, and thinking more about how to create a new business model using the AI. So in this case, here are some ideas that can come up. One is the idea of a system that helps drive retention on autopilot, right? People are leaving the gym. How do we come up with a system that uses our data to get them to come back and drive stronger conversion and reduce churn? Maybe you have a more frictionless membership rail program, right? So that it's easier to pause, rejoin, upgrade, and that directly impacts your lifetime value. Maybe you have an offer and pricing lab that you've developed that learns what moves behavior without destroying that lifetime value. So I get into a little bit more detail about these different ideas, but it's finding a way to turn that data into something else. Now, in the case of the gym, right? So let's talk for a second, practically speaking. If I own one gym, this might be tough to say, how am I going to monetize it? What customer is going to pay me for an easier cancellation process? Nobody's going to pay you for that. But what you could do is think about how to sell these ideas to other gyms that need a turnkey solution for this problem. You've trained it on data that makes sense. You understand the context of your business, right? You understand the problems that their customers face, and you come to them with a ready-made solution. So now the gym owner who's been selling exercise classes and memberships is suddenly in the business of B2B SaaS, right? Thinking about how to sell to other local gyms, how to enable the stronger marketing automation through a retention autopilot, help to automate some of the offer and pricing lab, helping to think through the customer experience on cancellation, pausing, renewal, right? And all this stuff starts to form a platform with a moat, we'll call it, right? It's shared intelligence. Each module makes the others smarter. You own the operating layer, right? You become the system of record for decisions, and you're building a standard, right? You become the default way the category runs. So it forces this gym to say, I'm not just the owner operator of a franchise of gyms. No, I'm taking the data that we have, the know-how that we have, and what I know to be true about these customer platforms, and I'm going to monetize that into something that other gym owners will benefit from, right? And this is the path from feature to product suite to platform. Platforms win because they learn faster than any single competitor, and they're specialized. Um, Knowing specifically about the gym industry helps lots of small gym owners. So I actually I designed something. I'm going to switch my screen over real quick. I designed something that you can use practically to come up with some of these ideas, right? Not all of them will be viable. I want to be clear about that. Not all of them will be, hey, that's going to make sense for our business, for our brand. But I built a custom GPT that takes inputs, right? It takes inputs on exhaust. It takes the customer exhaust data. It takes inputs on what you're uniquely good at. It takes inputs on what you know to be the friction points in your business, and it helps you come up with ideas, right? How can we think about our business in a new way? How can we come up with some concepts? So let's pick on something that I think most people can relate to in some fashion. Let's say um, I'm an HVAC chain, or I'm running an HVAC business and I'm trying to understand how I might want to expand, right? I sell people coming and fixing things and replacing things when they break, and installing things. But maybe I'm sitting on lots of information, right? I have service history by address. I have information on equipment, right? Somebody's furnace broke. I have parts used. I have information on while people are calling, seasonal demand, um, how estimates and final invoices may change, how my technicians that are out in the field replacing HVAC equipment in customers' homes are taking notes. Maybe there's photos. So I have this exhaust data, right? So the first way I'm going to use this is I'm going to give it some exhaust. So I'm going to say, okay, here's my data that you already produce, and here's what I have to work with. Next, I'm thinking about what am I good at? Maybe my company's really good at fast emergency response. I have a really good first time fix rate. I get it done on one trip. I have really good talent. I have really clean installations. I have good warranties. I have a really loyal segment of high-end homeowners. I work with property managers, families, small commercial businesses. All right, so now I plug in my core, right? We're basically going back to this Venn diagram and punching in these items here about what's unique about my business. And then I know the frictions of my customers, right? So what's the task that they hate around service? Who to trust? What price ambiguity might exist? Getting all these quotes, being home at a certain window because they said they're going to come between 9 and 6, and that's not a window, that's a whole day. Knowing what the problem is, maybe warranty tracking, remembering to do basic maintenance, fear of things breaking over and over again, and you wasting money, right? So we have these frictions that we can add to this chat as well. And when we plug it in, the GPT will start to put things through a framework and ideate with you, right? Is it going to run your business? Absolutely not. But will it give you some ideas that you can start to riff on? Sure. Um, in this case, it's coming up with, let's see, should I call the emergency triage and remote diagnosis? So in this case, the homeowner property manager um, uses a guided chat to upload some information. It looks like it's coming up with a revenue model here that makes it easier for customers to identify whether it's a worthwhile emergency. Maybe, maybe not. Not sure that's going to be something that people will pay for? Not sure. Here's another one. This is instant trusted pricing with a quote engine. So this is an AI quoting system that produces binding-ish ranges. Um, Again, not totally sure that this is something people would pay for. This actually seems interesting though. Okay, so warranty maintenance and callback prevention, a home system record and auto compliance agent. So this is a system of record that automatically stores information, installs, um, and it removes the tasks after service. So paperwork and warranty tracking, remembering maintenance, where you can sell a SaaS subscription per home and offer a priority response or risk-based pricing. So this is something that you can sort of sell as an add-on if you're an HVAC business that gives people greater peace of mind, right? It gives them almost like a plan they could follow that warns them about maintenance issues, maintenance reality, and where to go. So you can use this yourself, and I'm going to include a QR code at the end to say, how do I use this custom GPT? To plug in the unique aspects of your own business, right? Yeah, what's unique about my business that we do well? That's the core. What exhaust data do we have? What data are we collecting? Um, and what are the friction points around my customers? So I'll include this, and you can use it as often as you'd like. To use it to ideate on these different ideas. And that's how AI can actually help you think in different ways as an assistant, right? Um, it's not necessarily a smoking gun every time. You'll know better about what's realistic on what your business can or should do, where you think your customers will be willing to pay more for. But it can be really helpful as you think through different ways to potentially use what you have to be better and smarter at what you're already doing and improve the customer experience. So I'm going to flip back to the deck. So you have these ideas, right? What's the last thing I can offer you here is just some advice, right? You're going to be testing these business models. You're going to be experimenting with things. Test for learnings, not for immediate revenue, right? Leaders kill innovation by demanding perfect ROI too early. It happens a lot. Um, the right approach here is to try things. Fail fast. These are not my words. I'm repeating words of innovators who've done this for a lot longer than I have. In the early stages, you want to measure things like leading indicators. What drives activation? What drives repeat usage? What drives time to value and trust? And think about customer acquisition, lifetime value, revenue a little bit later. Test to see that you're actually creating something that people want that solves on those pain points that we had described together. So if you want to get started, right, I'd be thinking about, what job are we solving? What moment matters most? What unique data do we have? And honestly, what's more important is what will users pay for? Because you can come up with lots of funny ideas, but not all of them will be things that people will be willing to pay for, right? So come up with some moments. Think about some high friction points. What bets you might want to place. Think about how to build a prototype. Talk more about how to do some things in a small fashion. Maybe not nationally. Maybe in a small part of your business that can have an impact. And then use a few months not to stare at revenue, but to stare at what other more leading indicators can you track. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover today. I'd love to take questions. I know I covered a lot of content. I covered it really quickly. Um, Margaret, have we had any questions come throughout the session already?
Yes, we have. We'll be taking all of the questions via the Q&A box. Roll your mouse across the bottom of your screen to see the different menu options that you have, and it looks like a question mark. We have a couple right now. The first one goes back to when you were chatting about Walmart and asks for more concrete examples of how Walmart is using their insights.
Yeah. So Walmart uses their insights in lots of different ways. In the case that I talked about, they are tracking user behaviors on their website, through their apps, and through their stores, right? And they're using that to sell primed advertising to brands that sell either through Walmart's marketplace, their website, through their app, or into their stores. So if I'm selling, I don't know, I'm selling notebooks, right? I'm selling legal pad notebooks. I would pay Walmart Connect to say I want to target ads for people who are browsing Walmart.com or people who are browsing the Walmart app. I want to be a sponsored. Um, I want to show up first. I want to be ranked higher. You see this on Walmart. You see this on Amazon.com. When people search for, I don't know, legal notebooks, which I just showed you about, or they search for laundry detergent, I want to show up first. I want to have a placement there because they have that intent data. They can see what people search in real time, and they can use that as a way to recommend you above others in that category and based on that query. I hope that helps. They use their data, and to monetize, that's how they use their data first and foremost.
That's great. The next question is about your new business model archetypes and ask if you have more information that you can share, even if it's written that, just have to send them somewhere to read or something like that.
Yeah, I can send a follow up with you, Margaret, and we can send out some more information on the business model archetypes for sure.
Okay, great. Excellent. Next question is, if our organization is new to strategic use of AI, what would you recommend as a good place to start, just to whet our appetite and get ideas flowing for valuable use cases?
Yeah, I'd say start where it's easy, where you have little friction organizationally, where you have data that's readily available, and where you have a really clear felt pain point. Um, those are always going to be things that are easier to get across the line. If it's very complex, if it requires a huge lift from IT, if it introduces a lot of privacy and security risk, it's probably not the first thing that I'd look at focusing on. I'm not sure what business you're in, so it could come in lots of different ways, but I'd use these archetypes to say, can we help our customers in any one of these four ways, and then understand more about their pain points to help drive you. So, what is not fun for your customers today should be your North Star, guide you there, and then let the organizational readiness stuff help figure out where to focus. Use the GPT that I created. There is a QR code which I'll put up now because I know some people are leaving. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can access the custom GPT that I walked you through today. Um, but start with the customer problem, and then figure out organizationally who's ready to do this, who's going to be a champion, and how do I go to those areas where there's going to be less closed doors in my face, right? Stuff that I've done in when I was in industry myself is find somebody who's excited about helping, and don't make it so big that you can't get started, because you'll never get off a home plate.
Great. Okay, let's see. Next question is, do you recommend AI frameworks for responsible use of AI? Do you have a preference of which one and why?
So we're talking about responsible AI. There's a lot of this book is being written um, as we're living it, right? So I don't have a recommended responsible AI framework to share. What I'd say is that it should absolutely follow the law, and it should be grounded in your company's core values and moral compass, right? So lean on things like what feels fair to our customers, what feels right, what's not creepy, what is um, moral in the sense that it is not creating inequity or bias in an experience, and then base how you develop that experience grounded in those fundamentals, right? Let people opt into stuff. Don't put things behind a paywall that you would feel are unethical. Or burdensome on your customers. This whole thing really centers on saying how do we help customers not create more ways to get in the way of their experience or to create things that they don't need that they have to pay for. I'm not sure if I fully answered your question, but I did my best.
Great. All right. I I just want to check and make sure that I got. Oh, right. Here was a follow-up question on the strategic use of AI. Um, that it was a nonprofit, and they want something that they could test that wouldn't require a ton of investment, financial and otherwise.
Yeah. So I look to the pain points that your customers have, or maybe that even your internal stakeholders have if it's a nonprofit. And I look at the data that I'm already collecting. Right? Do you have data on donors? Do you have data on some of the operational systems? Where specifically can you find an opportunity that crosses over in those sort of three central areas that you can explore on?
Thank you for that. I have someone who wanted to know, and I don't know how much you can speak to this, Chris, but um, how universities are using AI, and especially Rutgers.
Yeah, universities are really keen on AI, and not just busting students for cheating. They're really keen to understand how it can add value in terms of the learning experience, right? Are there interesting ways to add AI components to their courses? I've seen some professors include like a chatbot or a custom GPT that lives alongside their courses that they're teaching, where students can use it to run through simulations, right? Where students can use it to ask questions and almost study for the an exam that's coming up. In my own teaching, I use it in those types of ways. I also use it for back end purposes. How can I use it to come up with interesting exercises? How can I use it to help me develop content that is more easy to explain and to share with students? I think the key is that universities are thinking about it as ways to supplement the human elements, the experience, the conversations that come from learning in ways that enhance the learning experience, not replace it through a full AI experience. We have some great leadership at Rutgers that's doing this. I know we have a whole committee here that is focused on ways to improve the learning experience and the faculty uh, pedagogy type of workflows using these types of tools. So it's burgeoning, it's changing quickly, and everybody's sharing their own use cases in ways that it can help.
Are you familiar with using Notebook LM?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, that was a follow-up to that question here.
yes, I'm a big fan of Notebook LM. Some of my graphics were produced by Notebook LM. It helps me move faster so I can explain concepts, but I don't have to learn how to be a graphic designer to get those ideas across. So it's an incredibly valuable tool.
Fantastic. Um, I think that I have brought to you all of the questions that were received in the Q&A. I'm just double checking in the chat to see if anything popped in there by mistake, or because if anyone might have been limited um,
Yeah,
uh, to sometimes on the mobile app, they don't get Q&A. So I believe that we have addressed any questions. And if you don't mind, then Chris, I can just make some concluding remarks.
absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Well, first, I'd like to thank you for your time and for helping us to keep up with innovation and the new business models associated with AI. Um, Thanks to our audience, they were very enthusiastic about participating in our chat questions and in Q&A. Um, and Just want to remind everyone that our RBS webinars take place on Fridays at noon Eastern Time. Um, for more information, you can always visit our webpage, which is business.rutgers.edu/alumni/ lifelong-learning. Don't worry about writing that down for anyone who is here because all the registrants will receive that information via email. I mostly mention that for the benefit of anyone watching our recording. But we have an exciting schedule of topics and presenters lined up for this year, and that's thanks to the thoughtful suggestions that have come from our audience in the past. So we encourage you to keep sharing your great ideas with us. We want our series to continue to meet your needs. So please stay online for just a moment longer when today's webinar ends because you'll immediately receive a brief 3-question survey about today's event, and one of the questions is a free-form field to type in subjects and or speakers you'd like to have featured in future webinars. And I mentioned this at the beginning and addressed a couple of questions of this nature. Um, our link to the archived recording of this presentation will be shared via social media and emailed to you, and will also be on the Business Insights page of our website, along with recordings from our previous virtual lunch and learns. So I thank you, Chris. I thank our audience, and I wish everyone a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to everybody, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks. Bye bye.